don't worry if you miss one, come later. That's fine. Um, but it'll be Mondays and Wednesdays at the same time. So today we're going to be looking at how to set up your keyboard, which we'll talk about which keyboard we mean, because it's not the one that's maybe right in front of you. Um, Later this week, we're going to be looking at fonts and typography with syllabics. Um, Next week, we'll be looking at some learning resources. So learning how to, type with Cree, but also, how to translate things. And then over the next couple weeks or a couple sessions, so on the 22nd, 27th, we're actually going to do some activities where you we'll use the syllabics. We're going to give you an excuse to practice. We're going to show you how to do some interesting things with them. And then in our last session, uh, we'll hopefully have some things that you've all created that we can share with each other, um, and look at some additional resources. All right. So today, our goal is to learn how you can actually start. Actually, this is a good reminder. Thank you, Stephanie. I have a reminder on this slide for myself that I was actually going to. You can actually access these slides, uh, the entire slide deck. I do have some links in the slides. I'll share them in chat, but if you want them later, don't worry about taking notes or bookmarking them. You just bookmark those slides, so you can access them later. And our goal today, we're first going to look at how to start typing with the Cree syllabics on a computer. But we also know, thanks to your questions ahead of time, a lot of you are more interested in doing it on mobile devices. So iPhones, iPads, Android phones, and tablets, we'll get to those as well. If you have any questions at all throughout, feel free to use the chat. I also like the raise hand feature in Zoom is a nice one. Um, if you have general questions, we might leave them to the end. We're going to have some dedicated time at the end to answer questions. Also, I've got some answers for the questions you submitted ahead of time. That's great. But if you have specific questions about what we're doing, we'll definitely take a look at them. Like Stephanie asking about the schedule. Yep, we've got that in the slides. So that link I just put is the whole slide deck, everything I'll be sharing. So before we get into that technical stuff, I'm curious, um, what I phrased this kind of strange. I read it again and I was like, I don't know how to phrase it better. But the practical reason, why are you online with us today? Why would anyone want to use syllabics on a digital device, a computer, an iPhone? Um, why do you feel it's important that we have syllabics on these devices? Why would you want to use it yourself, whether it's your job or something? But share in the chat, or if you want to raise a hand, see if we can get some answers. So in a few weeks, you're going to be a pro. You're going to know how to type with syllabics. What are you going to do? What are you going to be able to do with them? Yeah.
Someone raised their hands. You can go ahead and speak.
Hey, hi. One of the things that I've noticed in learning and with children sharing Nehi'o Win is that SRO is really helpful as an adult for a little while, but that learning with syllabics is faster because we're not drawing upon our previous ideas of what those sounds mean. And so one of the barriers for those who work on curriculum is I know what the syllabics are and I can spell in syllabics and that's fantastic, but there's a barrier to supporting other educators in that for the life of me, I can't get it to work on my keyboard. and if we can, leapfrog with learning and using syllabics, for our children, I think they're going to be light years ahead of us when it comes to reclaiming language. And so that's why I'm here. I really desperately would like to be more efficient in my use of technology when it comes to working with and offering resources to community members.
Thank you so much for sharing. Um, and do you want to just do a quick introduction, your name and where you work?
Yes. Danse kakyo kakisimo iskoyo nitsigasen. Egwan Natalie Pepin Nitsigasen. I work well, I mostly help Kitayak in ceremony, and I'm a language learner myself, but I run an organization called Meeting My Ancestors, and we create language reclamation resources and try to get them out there in community. And yeah, a little bit. I live in Tawatinak, Tuatna Valley, northern Alberta, about an hour and a half north of Edmonton.
Amazing. Thank you for that. Remind me, hopefully we'll get to do some live troubleshooting because I know even Avi and I getting our computer set up, we had to try a couple times. We think we have it down, but yes, I'm seeing lots of sharing in the chat. This is great. I'm going to scroll back up, just highlight a few. Yeah, so going from Cree orthography to syllabics, yeah, that's really great. So yeah, there's multiple ways of typing the language, and often people want it in syllabics. So revitalize the language, yeah. A lot of the sound system, the pronunciation, recognizing the symbols. Yeah, chatting with your friends, that's really great too. Just even the day to day, making your own flashcards, that's a great idea. Really great, good suggestions. Um, Ramona, we're going to be looking at that one. That's great. So definitely keep sharing if you have ideas. Um, and one thing that was shared was that the sort of lack of resources right now, whether it's, educating the next generation, um, or learning yourselves. Avi and I, over the next few weeks, will be sharing a few, but our goal for those additional weeks where we wanted to actually create some is to actually create those resources. At Pinghua, we've worked with the Nunavut Literacy Council in developing resources for children to learn Inuktitut. So we're going to sort of base on some of the things that we created for them, interactive games where you can learn the syllabics and the sounds and the language. Um, and then you can bring in your expertise and share your own language, even if it's not Cree. If you speak another language that uses syllabics, um, you can easily adapt it. Okay. Um, so we're going to start with computers, and that's a traditional computer, a laptop, just not a phone, not a tablet. The opposite of a phone and tablet. Any other computer, and specifically looking at Windows, which most computers are Windows. If you're not sure what kind of computer you are, you likely have a Windows computer, as well as Mac, which if you have a white glowing apple on the back of your computer, you probably have a Mac computer. And to get your syllabics working on a computer, you need two key things. One is fonts, which we'll talk about, and keyboard software, which we're going to talk about. An optional third thing we were going to talk about, but we probably won't have time, so we're going to make time either Wednesday or next Monday, is an on-screen keyboard, which can be really helpful. But we're not going to look at that quite today because we're definitely not going to have time. So fonts are just what the letters look like, the letters and symbols on your screen. You know them when you draft your email, you write a document in Word, you change from Times New Roman to Arial, all those other options, those are fonts. On Wednesday, we're going to talk more about fonts specifically created for syllabics. But the nice thing is, thanks to a system called Unicode, which essentially was a group of people saying, now that we have these computers and we can see symbols and language on them, we should really standardize what is included in there. We need for Roman orthography, writing English, we need lowercase and uppercase letters. And for other languages like Cree, we need syllabics. So thanks to that standardization, nearly every computer in the world can actually see, thanks to the fonts that come on your computer, can see the actual fonts. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this link. I'll put in the chat here. This is just a Wikipedia page that shows sort of a chart of fonts. And if you can see those fonts, you're good to go. It's very rare to have a computer that cannot see them. Typically, it would be someone that maybe has removed fonts from their computer for a certain reason. But to assure yourself, you do have a way of actually seeing syllabics. Some people we talk to say like, oh, I need a font. It's like, I've never seen syllabics on my computer. It's like, well, it's actually, unless you're looking for them, it's very rare to see another language at all. When you go on the internet and you Google something, Google knows you speak English, so it shows you English results. If you were to actually start looking for it, as Avi and I have done, had a lot of fun doing, there are a lot of sites that use the syllabics first. So fonts, done. We don't need to do anything else. The challenge is now to actually hit keys on your keyboard and make those syllabics show up. And when we talk about keyboards, there's two sort of types of keyboards. As sort of a language thing that it's a little bit annoying, but there's hardware. Those are the physical things that you can, interact with. So your screen, your mouse, and that keyboard that's, sitting in front of you or attached to your laptop. But on a computer is also software, the things that are, made with code, the digital things that, we can't actually pick up. You can't really grab your internet browser or Microsoft Office. Well, your computer also has a software keyboard in it. And that's what connects you hitting a button that happens to have the letter P on it and makes a P appear on the screen. Well, we can change that behavior. We can hit the key that still says a letter P. We can put a sticker over it. You can get syllabic stickers to go on it. But hitting that button, we can essentially tell the computer to show a different symbol on the screen. And that's what a keyboard software does. And that's what we're going to be working on today for both computers and on our mobile devices. So someone earlier mentioned language keys, and that's what we're going to start with. Let's grab that link there. So there's the link from that one. Again, if you scroll up, you'll be able to grab the link from my slides. All these links are in there and clickable, but I'm going to exit full screen because I have this link up. So Language Geek has a lot of resources. We might look again in another workshop at some of their other resources, but today we want to download that keyboard software. The first little bit on this page mentions, sorry, I just got a strange notice. There we go. Mentions there are two different styles of keyboards. This page is for the build a syllable, and that is often recommended for people just starting to type with syllabics. The other option is a one key. And basically the challenge is there are more syllabics than there are keys on your keyboard. Keys on your keyboard were designed for an English Roman orthography. There are only so many keys on your keyboard. So they had to come up with strategies. And to build a syllable, essentially you can see these examples here. So to get this symbol, you would press K and then you'd press an E. So you're not pressing them together, you're pressing them one after another. And that's what's often recommended for beginners. On this page, though, you want to scroll down a little bit, and I'll make this a lot bigger. Let's fit that in better. You'll see there's a section on Cree. Again, not limited to Cree. There are a lot of different languages from around the world on this Language Geek site. But here we can see there's a Mac downloads if you have a Mac, and a Windows download if you have a Windows computer. And that's going to download a zip file, probably to your downloads folder. But you can go ahead and click on one of those when you're ready. Both of those will install fonts for all of this. So you'll get the Eastern, Central, and Western syllabic sets. And another thing that's helpful on this page is that once you've downloaded them, they have PDFs here of each one. So if you're, the Plains, Musquatchees, Cree, you would for Western hit the key map PDF, and that will open, and you can sort of see where they're going to be on your keyboard. So what keys you'd have to press, and a number of notes here on how to actually type all of them. But we'll get to that. So once you've actually downloaded that, there is right here just above it in smaller text, very detailed instructions. I've got some instructions in my slide that are pretty general, but I do recommend following these instructions, especially if you're going to do this in a month or two. Language Geek may have updated a step or two, and theirs will be most up to date. So I'm on a Windows computer. If I check the Windows installation instructions, it's going to tell me to unzip the file. If you've never dealt with a zip file, typically you just have to double click it and then extract. On Mac, it's even a little bit easier. And then it'll show you, very similar to this, some files that were inside that download, and there will be a setup file. And you can go ahead and double click that setup file. It'll take a few minutes, but you will see a little progress bar, and then it'll say installation complete, and the language that you've downloaded has been successfully installed. And then, and I can show on mine in a minute, just I'll show you live rather than these screenshots. There is an icon in your on your start bar. This is for Windows again, down by the time and your audio settings. If you don't see that, let me know and I'll pull up how to do that. But that icon lets you actually change the language. So if I go back to my slides here, and I'm just going to come down here, I'm going to pull this over so I can actually share my whole screen. I'm going to show you live. I'll switch to, here we go. There we go. So now you can see my start bar as well. So as I typically do in my day-to-day work, I type and I get the Roman letters. Now down here, so I'm on a Windows 11 computer. Windows, there's various versions. It might be a little bit different on your screen. Here I have ENG US, so English, United States, and it's basically the language and the keyboard layout. Now, for whatever reason, when I did mine, the language stayed as English, but that's not really an issue. But here I can see Cree Western as an option. So I can click Cree Western, and now I can even put my cursor over that and it'll say English, Canada, Cree Western. And now if I type warning, I do not know how to type in syllabics, so this is not going to make any sense. It's going to be just like I did, just hitting the keyboards randomly. But if I hit my keys, I now get, there we go, we've got some syllabics. Now, not every key press is going to work, but the pattern is typically you have to hit two keys. So if I press I, I'll get that symbol. But as it said in the example, if I press K, nothing is going to appear until I press the E. And if you're familiar with Cree and a lot of First Nations languages, the syllabics are based on syllables. So not like English, where a K is for the K sound. You actually combine a consonant and a vowel for a lot of the syllabics. So again, a K, E will give me that symbol. Type MISPON. Maybe I got the SP part wrong. I got the actual. This is what happens when you you aren't actually doing the correct combination. Take a suggestion from the chat there. I'm gonna switch back because I often forget, and then I go to search something online, and I'm typing in syllabics. Um, but that is really the gist of it. If this isn't working, one thing that might solve it is in one of our upcoming workshops, we're going to be showing the on-screen keyboard, which essentially means an additional piece of software that will show a keyboard on your screen that you can actually click or tap on, very similar to your mobile device. You know, your phone, your tablet doesn't have a keyboard attached to it necessarily. You have the symbols on the screen and we interact with it that way. We can actually do that on a computer or laptop as well. And we'll show that software in case it isn't quite working today. And you're just, not sure how to actually interact with the keyboard right now. Samira, RSO rules. I'm going to do a quick Google. So SRO, or Samira, if you want to unmute. I'm seeing a few different, is it self-regulatory organization? I'm not familiar. Samira, did you want to share some more in the chat about your question, or if you want to unmute?
Steve, Mispun is the way it's
Keep an eye
written,
on the chat. I
looks
also
like
saw Manisha
like
unmute. If you know the answer, Manisha,
the
feel free to
Mispun,
jump
which
in.
looks like the first time Samara wrote, which looks with the English letters,
All right, we'll keep
Mispon.
an eye on the chat, Samira. You're invited if you wanted to
Yeah. And
clarify your question, because it looks like an
Ramona
interesting question.
typed
I'm just not familiar with
Mispun and
SRO
Cree
rules.
syllabics.
And I see people are actually now typing with syllabics in the chat. That's a good sign that it is working. Congratulations. I know not everyone is going through the process now, but later let us know if you do have any issues. But again, the style of keyboard software that we're downloading is the build a syllable. So often you have to press two keys to get a symbol. So don't worry if you've hit, just one key on your keyboard and nothing has appeared. Often you do need to then, start with a consonant and then a vowel, and combining those together, the software will recognize those key presses. And again, they don't have to be at the same time. It's one, then the other. Right. And just a quick check-in, because we wanted to look at the app we're going to need on our mobile devices. Any major issues or any troubleshooting we need to do for getting keyboards working on computers? Let us know in the chat or put up your hand. You can always ask if you're doing this later. You can reach out to us or ask in another workshop. So that's not working. The Mac installation is a little bit different. It seems like I've missed something someone said. I wonder if that... Yeah, I think I'm having audio issues on my end. Yeah, I'm getting unstable connection again, Avi. Seems I'm having issues on my end. I'll do my best. Yeah, I don't know. My headphones are just not connected at all. Let me switch and they'll come off. There we go.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes, Avi, you sound better.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I think Steve still seems to be having some audio issues, and Ramona sent me some messages concerning the SRO stuff, which I will try to read. And you also shared some examples on the syllabics app that I will check out. We do have the syllabics app that we're planning to share, Ramona, Samara. So thanks for letting us know. And I think I just mixed up Ramona's name with Samara's name because they were typing close. So if you give me a minute, I'll just go through the chat. Okay, and start from where Steve was asking questions. So the first thing was Samara asking about the SRO and sharing that SRO are the Roman letters reflecting on the syllabics. And they shared, as Ramona shared an answer, an example. And then let's see, what else was the other thing? So Mac, Ramona mentioned that the Mac installation is a little bit different. And Cheryl was asking if we could go over the installation process. Steve, can you hear me now, or is this still broken?
Yeah, it's a lot better now. New headphones are not working right now, but seems to be okay.
Okay. So I don't know if you heard what I said, but I think the group would appreciate if you went over the installation once more. And I think Ramona had their hands up, so I don't know if they want to share anything quickly before you get started.
Yeah, go ahead, Ramona.
Hi. You showed us on Language Geek where you're doing the two keystroke, and and then it turns into the syllabics. Is that the one that you just showed us? Or are you like saying if you type the letter J, this syllabic character will come up?
Oh, the two keystrokes, correct. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, just I was just double checking on that. Thank you.
good. Oh, that's great. I did want to just double back, actually, looking at the time. Maybe I'll handle that in a minute. I know we want to keep moving. So I'm going to quickly go through the app that we're going to look at for mobile devices. Just I know a lot of the questions sent ahead of time were asking about iPhones and iPads. You're probably sitting patiently waiting until we're getting to that. And then we'll go back and we'll do some troubleshooting. Oh, I've had internet issues that
Oh, really?
not usually this bad. Um, so uh, very similar for a mobile device. We need a font. That's the characters on our screen, what they look like. And luckily, phones also have syllabic fonts. Again, thanks to that group that started Unicode years and years ago, standardizing the characters we see on our screen, including lots of languages. But we also need keyboard software. There's no keyboard hardware. I mean, you can attach a keyboard to your phone, but you know, by the most part, when we're interacting with a keyboard on our mobile device, we're tapping on the screen, right? We have the character show up on the screen. So what we need to do is have a different keyboard actually show up on the screen. Now, for this one, we came across this really nice site. We're going to go back to this site to look at a few different things over the next couple of weeks. But they actually developed their own app. And Cheryl, I'm just putting a pin in yours, so I'll go back to you as well. We'll go back to the computer installation in just a minute. But for those wanting to do it on a mobile device, the First Voices site has developed their own app called First Voices. You can also find it in your iOS or Android app store as First Voices. On that page, you'll see a link to download. You want to download for the device of your choice. So this first row here, we have iOS, so that's iPads, iPhones, and then there's options for Androids. If you know you don't have an iPad, you know you don't have an iPhone, it's most likely an Android. So you can download one of those. And once you download that, I'm going to bring up again, they've got really documented user guides, so links right below that. I'll just show the Android one because I pop that up here. So it'll show up as an app, just the same way as everything else you get from the App Store. And when you open it, and I'll show the screenshots from the iPhone one in a minute, they're very similar. It's again a service that has lots of different languages. I believe First Voices says they have over 100 different languages from around the world to select from. But what you want to do is step one, you want to select the keyboards you want to use. So you can select multiple, not just one. And what you'll see first when you go to select the keyboard is it's sectioned into regions. So you have to think about physically where in the world is your language spoken. For Plains Cree, it's under prairies, but have a look. You can see, Southwest, there's one language. BC Coast, there's 21 languages, or at least in this version. The current app might even have more. But if you're looking for Plains Cree, you would look under the prairies, and then selecting one of these regions is going to bring up a list of all the languages in that region. Tapping the question mark will give you a little bit more information about that language, but then just checking the box, you can see some of these have check marks and some of them don't. Yours will all be empty. So you want to check at least one box. You can check multiple. You can do as many as you want to. But then once you've got at least one of the languages selected, you want to do the second step. Now, again, this is Android. I'll show the iOS. I know a lot of the questions are specific to iPhone. Now, the Android one has a button just for setup. The iOS one, the Apple one, has some written instructions where you will need to go. So you'll need to open your settings app on a iOS device that looks like a little gear. I believe it's still gray. It looks like a gear or a cog, and is where you find all the settings for your device. And in there, there's a section called General and then Keyboard. From there, once you're on the general keyboard settings screen, we'll go to Keyboards, and you might see additional ones there, but we want to add a new keyboard. And then from there, you'll see an option for First Voices and third-party keyboards. And then under that list, you'll see all the ones that you've actually checked the boxes for within the app. So it'll look very much like this. So this is, again, within the app. Yeah, there it is, the settings icon. This is your general section. And then this is within keyboards. We've got English. You probably have an emoji keyboard, but you want to click Add New Keyboard. From there, we'll see third-party keyboards, just a little heading, and there's an option, First Voices. And then on that, we can actually now click the little globe icon. The little world icon is how you can actually switch on your iOS device within the keyboards. Anytime you're typing, whether it's a message, sending an email, anywhere you're typing on your device, whenever that keyboard shows up, you should get that little globe, and that will let you switch back and forth, because there'll be times that you want to type in syllabics, like maybe a message to someone that speaks Cree. But if you wanted to do a Google search so you can order pizza for dinner or something, you might want to switch back to the standard English Roman keyboard. And then this gives some instructions about pressing and holding the keys. And you can see that some of them have little dots on them if there's multiple symbols associated with that key. So it does take some getting used to. It's not quite as fast as maybe you're used to typing. But again, we do have that sort of physical challenge where there's only so many keys on a standard screen keyboard, and there are more syllabics than there are actually keys that we can press. Just before we go in and do a little bit of troubleshooting, wanted to quickly share again these are the links to the slides that have all the links and instructions that we've shared in this workshop. But I did want to go back and, because I've noted a couple people having issues, and we'll do a little bit of live troubleshooting, see if we can help. Um, Most recently, Samira saying, oh, and Samira has solved it. That is great. Samira, if you wanted to unmute or type in the chat, are you aware of what the issue was and how you solved it? Because it might help someone else if you ran into an issue and solved it yourself. Maybe just a patient. That could be it. I worked with someone a number of years ago that often had technical problems until I went and stood beside them when they asked for help. And it had nothing to do with me. It had to do with them slowing down and going through the steps, saying, "This is what I've done," and then realizing that maybe they missed a step, but thought they had done it. So if it doesn't work the first time, by all means, try again. There's a number of steps. It's easy to miss one. Yeah, if you look down there, Wes, that's great. That's great to hear. Bonus figured out an issue. That's really great. Trying to scroll back. I know there was someone else that had a technical issue with their computer, but I'm not finding it right now. Someone wants to remind me who. Yes, and Lorraine, it is actually being recorded. Yes. But if someone wants to remind me in the chat if they were having issues on their computer, I did want to talk about a couple of the questions that were sent ahead of time that were really interesting. So thank you for everyone that sent some questions ahead of time. Someone was asking sort of about the history of syllabics. Where did they come from? And I actually had to do a little bit of research. Um, and one of the questions specifically was on, is it based on the International Phonetic Alphabet, which I wasn't familiar with until I did a bit of research. So thank you for that. And did discover that syllabics have been around for, almost half a century longer than the International Phonetic Alphabet. So syllabics were around before then. But at least in the brief research I've done, um, often online, the credit goes in part to an English missionary. Obviously, not necessarily just that missionary, but that is the written history that lives online right now. Um, and as the history goes, Evans was in Rice Lake, Ontario, learned Ojibwe, and then was in Norway House, Manitoba, where they learned Swampy Cree. And they were familiar with a similar written system, the Devanagari script used in British India, where it's again using syllables to to write out the symbols. And so that is what might have actually inspired them. Okay, so it's Angela's having issues. Yeah, well, thank you for reminding me. And there was another interesting question right before I get to Angela. Someone saying they had an idea for a syllabics keyform that they wanted to bring to the iPhone, which is really great. There are lots of different versions available, but by all means, there's room for improvement, and offering alternatives is really great. Recommend coding courses. If you want more information, read out to us. Avi and I both have coding experience, and can suggest some courses if you're interested, or just talking to someone in your community who has experience developing apps for iPhones, because that's really what you need. Just like the First Voices app, you could develop your own app and actually create your own keyboard. Great. So sorry, I keep getting notifications about my speakers, but I think they're still working. Great. So I just saw, yeah, Avi, thank you for helping in the chat. We'll go back over the instructions for the computer. Um, if you haven't yet, this is a link to my slides again. I'll put them in the chat here. And that slide in particular, slide 9, has the setup for a computer. And step 1 is to just go to this website. There's lots of information on this website, but we want to scroll down to where we see the big heading Cree. And there's 2 options. And I believe, if I remember right looking in the chat, Angela, you may have mentioned you're on Windows. It wasn't working. And so you want to open that. Now, one caveat when you do download something on Windows as a zip file, I'll just quickly open this. Oh, actually, I'm going to do it this way. I know you can't see it on my screen at the moment, but I'll move it over in just a second. So I've downloaded mscree.zip. And here I can see 3 folders. Can I zoom in here? Extra large icons. There we go. Well, the text doesn't get any bigger. Though here we got Central, Eastern, and Western. Now, this is because I've double clicked that file I downloaded, or I did a right click and selected open. One thing that Windows does not do a good job of is explaining that right now what we're doing is sort of previewing these files. If you happen to see this button that says extract all, we need to do that before the keyboard will actually be accessible to us. So if I clicked extract all, it's going to ask me where I want to extract them. And essentially, it's going to pull the files out of the download and actually save them as actual files on your computer. And then I'm going to say, yeah, I'm going to extract. And it looks very similar, but I no longer have that extract button. So here you can see on this one, we have the extract. I've clicked it. Now it's opened a new window, and I don't have that. And I'll make this look like the other one with the extra large icons. And then I can go into Cree Western and find that setup. So it'll probably look similar to this, the keyboard and the globe. And then double clicking on setup here will take me through some steps. I've already installed it. So when I click on setup, it asks me if I want to remove the keyboard. I do not. You'll have an option to add or install, and you just click through the steps, similar to installing another program on your computer. But my guess is probably that extract all, because I know it has caused me problems before. Right. And Manisha, I apologize. We've gone over time. I think I was supposed to wrap up a good 5-10 minutes ago. But